Today I want to ask the question, how can we approach learning a new piece of music in a way that's both creative and fun? When we're having fun, we learn better. And I have a hunch that if we can bring this sense of fun or this sense of play into approaching a new piece, it's going to be something that's going to help us connect more easily with whatever it is about the music that's bringing us joy, and ultimately to convey that joy to an audience. So the piece I want to talk about today is Beethoven's Archduke Trio. And we're going to be talking mostly about the first 7 or 8 bars, the opening piano solo. So first, let's just hear what that sounds like. So these days when I learn a piece of music for the first time, one of the things I love doing the most is just to sing. So if I sing that first phrase-lit, there's a few reasons I might do that for myself. One is that it just immediately creates a very natural vocal model for how I might want the music to sound or how I want to shape the phrase. The other thing, though, is that it actually creates a physical model, because in order to sing, I have to use my body. I have to push air through my vocal cords. And often our bodies move very sympathetically, very naturally when we sing with the motion of the music. So what I might do would be actually to just sing those first 5 notes again. And to notice, okay, how is it that I move my body when I do that? Well, there's a sort of gentle circular motion up and down, back and forth. And then I might sit down at the keyboard and just try to play in a way where I'm incorporating that motion into my larger body movements. Okay, so maybe that didn't sound very different. It felt a lot better. It immediately felt a lot stiller and smoother, and that might be something that I want. It might be something I don't want. And I can notice little details. I can notice, oh, maybe I want to change the hand position slightly here. That felt a bit awkward. But the main idea is actually to be alternating now between singing and playing. So if I want something different, let me try to sing it again differently and then play some more. And what this does is it gives you a positive model to keep returning to. And what we often do instead is we might play, we evaluate, we play, we think some more, we play. And this is great because we might say each time, oh, I think it can be more beautiful, or I think the shaping can be more legato. And this seems like a positive thing because we're focusing on what can be better. We're focusing on the beauty of it, the legato, the character, all of these things. The problem with this approach sometimes is that because it can be a little unspecific in what you're aiming for, it can be easy to fixate on the negative. So it can be easy to say, oh, it's not beautiful enough, or it's not legato enough, without really having a guide or something to direct you. So that's why I love singing, because it lets me always return to this positive, kind of uplifting model. The other thing I would do with singing is just to sing every voice. So if I take the bass line, it's this sort of repetitive oscillating thing. It can feel a bit awkward. But if I sing it, immediately, just by pushing air through my body, it has a sense of motion, it has a sense of life to it. And I would even sing along as I play. And what I would try to do is, by using my ear, sort of connect that nuance of my voice all the way to my fingertips and let that influence how I'm touching the keyboard. And then the last thing is I would actually just sing each voice in register, or at least attempt to sing each voice in register. And what this does is, again, it creates a real physical sense of the space between the voices, of the beauty of the sonority, and it really internalizes that sonority before we play. So when I first sang the melody, I actually sang it down here. It's quite high in my voice, but it's quite low on the piano, right? The distance from that to the bass line that Beethoven writes can sound almost quite ordinary. And then in the bass you have yo, and then up to the melody yo, yo, yo. So that distance in my voice, it feels quite far, but it's just a sixth on the piano, right? So then what if I try to sing what Beethoven actually writes, which is all the way up here? So if I sing the bass again, yo, and then this pitch, yo, it's all the way at the top of my falsetto. I can barely sing it. But if I go back and forth a few times again, yo, 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 I really feel that distance. And suddenly, even before I touch the keys, my ears are craving something a little bit more special than just a B flat chord. So all of these are ways that you can use singing, which is really a very basic, intuitive way to approach music in order to hear with fresh ears, in order to hear as if for the first time. So before we continue, let's just take that idea and do something fun with it. This is another thing that I like to do when I'm approaching a new piece. And what if we take that idea of starting the melody down here, actually? Okay, and then let's create with that a more normalized version of what Beethoven Archduke Trio might have been if Beethoven had started down there, right? So... and then I kind of want to avoid anything fancy, so I might do a more normal ending here. Oh, and then we're just back to B flat for the violin entrance and counterstatement. And then maybe a counter melody in the cello. And then let's continue the same way. And then maybe there we can get the diminished chord that Beethoven goes to. So anyway, that whole process was basically just taking a different set of parameters. What if Beethoven had started with these notes instead? And then sort of following that through in a kind of playful way, improvising some other version of the beginning of Archduke. And it's not a very good version, and that's entirely the point, because then if we return to what Beethoven actually does, it feels so joyful and uplifted by comparison. It's this really amazing way to, again, hear a familiar piece with fresh ears. So the last thing that I want to do is take all of this one step further and ask ourselves, is it possible to actually hear each of the compositional choices that Beethoven is making in real time as we're playing it, as we're listening to it? Is this something that we can make clear to ourselves and ultimately to our audience? And what this relies on is kind of thinking of composition as a slowed down process of improvisation and really hearing through the composer's ears. With Beethoven, he has these incredible expressive markings all over the place. He's always writing sforzando, rinforzando, subito dynamics. And so I also want to incorporate those expressive markings into this process. And in order to do that, we're going to have to understand not just those markings, but all of the pitches and harmonies that he's choosing in the moment, and then how those expressive markings interact back with the pitches, whether they're reinforcing them, contradicting them. So all of this will be a little bit more clear in a moment. So just to start, let's take apart this melody. Beethoven starts on a B flat, right? And then he has this simple turn figure that's extending it. So he has B flat, and then he goes up, below, B flat. He's just prolonging B flat, and then he goes down to F. B flat, F. Okay, and then he repeats the F, and he goes back up to B flat. And then F, going up to B flat, and then G. G is where the phrase is going, and G is something new. So again, B flat, then F, and then F again, back to B flat, and then G. And so G, that end of the phrase, he marks with a rinforzando. So he's emphasizing this note with an accent. He's saying, this is something new. Okay, then he repeats it. So we get F, B flat, G. He repeats it and he speeds it up a little bit because he takes out these notes between the F and the B flat. Instead, we just get F, B flat, and then G. So we've had the rinforzando on the G. We might expect him to do the same thing again to emphasize it. Instead, he puts the rinforzando one note earlier on the B flat. So instead we get F, B flat, G. Okay, so that's interesting. He's already kind of speeding up the music. And then additionally, he puts the accent one note earlier. So maybe there's this quality of impatience to it even. Maybe we play that B flat a little bit earlier. F, P flat, G. Okay, that makes sense. And then he repeats it again. F, B flat, and then A, new note, and subito piano. So previously, he's always emphasized the unexpected with this accent, with this rinforzando. And then suddenly, the most unexpected note, he puts a subito piano. And he does this because, again, he wants to emphasize it, but he's already been doing this thing repeatedly of the rinforzando. So actually, the most surprising thing he can do is to go to a piano. But the reason why he goes to it is because now we have this new note, this A. So now we've been going up by scale, right? We started on this F, and then G, A. And so now we get to the most exciting note of all this A. And we might expect, okay, now he'll just keep going up the scale. A, B flat, C, D, E flat. And that's kind of what I did in the more normalized version. Go just up the scale with the pitches that you expect. And he does go up a few notes. He goes, A, B flat, C, right? But then he's so excited to get to the C that he stops going up the scale. He repeats the C. So we get C, D. So we get A, B flat, C, C, D. And then he's so excited about the C that he puts a trill on it. So we get A, B flat, C, C, D. Okay. Now the pattern is repetition, right? He's repeated the C. We might expect him to repeat the D. But now he's so excited by all these surprises that he decides to go one step further. So he decides, I'm going to keep going up the scale, but I'm not going to go to E flat. I'm going to go to E natural, which is the most unexpected note of all, and it leads us all the way up to the top of the scale, to the F. So this is an incredible moment, and actually, to register all of these surprises kind of one after the next, Beethoven stops writing rinforzando, he stops writing subito dynamics, he just marks a crescendo, and it's a crescendo all the way to forte, so it's the most intense dynamic marking we've had so far. What's really interesting about this dynamic marking is that the string parts are also marked crescendo, but not to forte. They don't have any terminal dynamic. And so there's this question of how should one play the crescendo? It might be tempting to sort of underplay it and make it more expansive, more spacious, which leaves a lot of room in the balance for the string parts to come through. But because we've been following through the music in this way, because we've been exploring and asking ourselves, how can we listen to this like a composer? We understand now that he's doing so much in this one bar of crescendo that all of these choices, all of these surprises, right? Surprise, surprise, are leading us actually to what happens next, which is this incredible moment, this rupture in the music, where the piano plays these declamatory chords, and the cello continues just on its own, not forte, cantabile, singing. And then again, declamatory piano chords, and now both the cello and the violin are continuing singing. So it's this utterly extraordinary moment where the strings and piano go in completely different directions, and the sort of gentle motion of the music, the accompaniment figure we've had all along, just completely stops. He completely dispenses with that. So this change of texture is absolutely unmissable the first time you listen to this piece, but what's incredible about exploring it and sort of rediscovering the piece as if for the first time in this way is that it allows us to hear this moment with all of the drama that's really there, with all of the drama that precipitates it. And it really lets us answer the question, why does this moment happen? How do we get there in the music? So thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this video, look ahead to next week. I'll be coming out with a new video on how to memorize a piece of music. And as a way of ending, I just wanted to play a little bit of a recording of my piano trio, the Merz Trio, performing Beethoven's Archduke from back in February. Please enjoy.